For the juxtaposition project, what we're doing is we're taking two things that don't necessarily go together. So again, we studied the artists and we actually looked at a couple images where they were combining two things that looked similar in size or scale, proportion, and merged them together to make something new. Now, again, I pulled up a quick reference here for the juxtaposition word here for the definition. And again, it's these two things that are placed close together that have a contrasting effect. So these are going to be two images that don't necessarily go together that create a little bit of contrast. And again, contrast just means they are opposites. So that would be like red and green, or blue and orange, or the sky and the ground. So for my assignment, what I did was I picked a fire extinguisher and a chili pepper. Now, again, the very first thing that's you're going to need to really think about is how are these going to look together. So I chose these because they're both red, and I feel like some of these I might be able to fit on one of these. Now, I don't want to grab just any of these fire extinguishers. I want it to still have that look of a fire extinguisher. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pick, let's go ahead and I'm going to pick this one. And I'm going to save this image. Okay. And we could copy it to the clipboard and see if that'll work for us, but we should be able to just open it from a saved image in Photopea. Not quite sure where my downloads go here. There it is. So images, and I'm going to open it. All right. So now that I have my first image, I'm going to go ahead and get my second image, which is the chili pepper. Now again, you'll notice the width here on the fire extinguisher and those kind of things are going to matter. So I don't want to necessarily just get any old chili pepper. This one I do kind of like that shape, but I'm going to go with this one because it's a larger size. Now to get this again, I can just save the image. So I can save it as. I could also copy the image address. We've done this in numerous different ways. I'm going to go ahead and save the image. And again, there it is. I'm going to go back here to my Photopea file. And I'm going to go File. I'm going to open it. Now again, we could open and place it, which we'll go ahead and do that. We'll go ahead and open and place just so you can see both ways. Because when it does that, it's going to load it as a smart object. So again, I'm going to go up here where my images are. That's where my last one was. And there it is. Now you'll notice that the work is inside this other work already, and there's a small square here. And what you'll notice is if I try to really manipulate this work, it oftentimes will give me a sign here. Let me see if I can get it to do it for you. I'm going to hit backspace. So I use the magic wand. It says smart object, let me do that again, must be rasterized. Every time I hit backspace, it says, no, you can't do that. All that means is when your work has a little square over here, it's considered a smart object. So if I just right click or two finger click with my Chromebook, you'll see a file, you'll see a thing says rasterize. So again, whenever you see this little square in the corner, if you want to actually manipulate the image, you're going to have to rasterize it. Now that it's been rasterized, the little square is gone. And if I hit backspace now, you can see that the white has been cleared. Now again, I could use any of these chili peppers, but I kind of like the one that curves just because I feel like it's going to have more reminiscence of that design. So what I'm going to do is isolate that by itself. So again, I'm simply going to go around it with my lasso tool, and we're going to clean it up in a minute. And here's the thing. I just selected the chili pepper itself. But if I wanted to get rid of everything except the chili pepper, I need to tell the computer that I want the opposite of the selection. So to do that, I am going to go to Select, and I'm going to invert my selection. So I already selected the chili pepper, and I'm going to invert it so that when I hit backspace, everything except that goes away. Now again, you can see here that there's a lot of white still around it. So if I really wanted to get this done and make it look really nice, I'm going to get in there close with my navigator tool, And again, you can always use the magic wand here if you want, but the magic wand isn't going to work that well because as you can see, even here in the background is white, but the chili pepper itself has a glare, which is white. So you're going to end up having to do this by hand mostly anyways. So it's a good thing to just start learning to do editing by hand. And again, the closer I get into this, the better I can get that to look. And I'm currently using the Polygonal Lasso tool. It's my favorite because I find it's more relaxing to be able to let go and continue clicking around the work. And again, I don't want to select the chili pepper. I want everything except the chili pepper. And I'm going to hit backspace. And again, the navigator allows us to kind of move around and see where we're at. Now, I'm not going to necessarily edit the whole top of the chili pepper, and that is simply because we are going to cut that part off. It's going to become part of this. So let's go ahead and look at that together. So again, I'm going to change this to say pepper. And that way I can remember, just in case, it's a good habit to get into because eventually you might have a whole bunch of layers at some point. Okay, so here is now my pepper and my fire extinguisher. Now the thing is that this isn't going to work. We want to cut some of this off still. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to duplicate this and turn it off. That way if I make a mistake or error, I still have it there. But on my new layer, I'm going to go ahead and free transform. So I'm using the rectangle tool. And again, these are all tools and things we've covered already. And I'm going to free transform. And what that allows me to do is shrink my fire extinguisher. Don't worry about the background changing because we're probably going to change that anyways. All I'm trying to do is fit it on here better so they can both be there. And again, anytime you have a selection made, you can go up to select and deselect, or you can notice there it says Control D. And I use that a lot. So I would just get in the habit of using Control D for deselecting. And I'm just going to lay that right over the top, just like this. And I am now going to make the chili pepper larger. Now using the chili pepper, I can line it up as much as I want, but I can also rotate. I could flip it if I wanted it going the other direction. And really my goal here is to line this up with the hydrant so that you can tell that there's a change, but at the same time, we want it to look good. Now, if you're having trouble because you can't see through the chili pepper, you can always go over here to the opacity, and you'll notice the layer I'm on is at 100%. And all I got to do is turn that down and I can see through it. So if I want to be able to size it a little better, that's a good trick. And then when you're done, you just turn it back up. All right, Control D. Now on the chili pepper layer, I'm actually going to go ahead and crop this out with the rectangle tool, and I'm going to hit backspace. And now you can see where I'm going to merge my two together. So again, I am going to bring the chili pepper up, and we can actually take the back off this one too. But I do want to keep this black tube. Yeah, we can take it off, I guess. But I do think the black tube looks good. So we can do both. Let's try both and decide which one looks better in the end. So I'm going to start my pepper there and keep the black tube because we can always get rid of it later. All right, I'm going to get rid of the rest of the white, might as well. And there we go. So now I'm on a clear background. I have my tube cut. There's a little bit of a mistake there. I could zoom in with the navigator, but let's just see how we're doing already. Pretty good already. So again, I'm simply going to select, make sure you're on the correct layer. I'm going to select my chili pepper. And again, I'm going to free transform it to fit as close as I can. And hit enter. Now again, you can use the navigator to zoom in if you want to make sure your lines match up. I advise it. And you can see my lines are a little bit off there. You can also see where I missed some of the white with my tool here. So again, you'll notice I clicked on the correct layer because there's no white on the pepper layer, just there. So you always have to make sure you're on the correct layer. It's one of the hardest things to really get you guys to understand. Most of the time when you're looking at something, you can't get it to work. It's more than likely because you're on the wrong layer. And again, that's a common problem. Everybody has it. It's okay. And we're just going to move this to try to line it up. And I think we're going to have to make it a little bigger. Kind of looks like I'm making a fire extinguisher ghost. Okay. Ooh, a ghost pepper. I like that. That's a good pun. Okay. So that's basically all we had to do. Now, the only other thing I wanted you to do was I also wanted you to create a background that would show that there was a divide. So for that, I'm simply going to hit my paint bucket. Here, we can go ahead and do that. And again, I didn't just paint over everything. I had a new layer. So we're going to call this layer teal. And then I'm going to move that layer to the background. So now everything's behind it. And then where my line cuts, I want to use a different color. Now for this, I think it would be really good if I used a green to represent the top of the chili pepper. So for that, I'm going to select a nice bold green, real bright hue. And then again, for that, I'm going to do that on the same layer, but I'm going to select where I want my fill layer to go because I want it to match. I want it to almost line up with my other layer. And again, we can zoom in on that if you want. And you'll see it's a little off. It's close. Let's bring it down a little bit, nitpicky, and then we'll hit that. Again, Control D to zoom out, or to deselect, sorry. I'm going to zoom out. And the last thing I'm going to do is crop. So the crop tool, just like if you were using any other program, I'm going to crop it. And there we go. So basically what I did was I just created a chili pepper fire extinguisher. It's kind of tough to tell that it's a chili pepper at this point. I think I could have done a little more. Maybe I should have done it opposite, but that was my idea. It does work. It shows me a juxtaposition between, something hot and something that cools off things that are hot. I could have cut this last piece off here, and we can see if it looks good without it. So again, if we really wanted to get rid of that little piece, we can do that. And we can determine, does it look better like that, or does it look better with it? I kind of think that it does look better without it, just for the sake of the project. So I'll leave it there. And then what we're going to do is go File. We're going to save our PSD. Oh, and before we do that, let's rename it. So we're going to call this, we'll call it Ghost Pepper. So we're going to hit OK. So now we have Ghost Pepper. And we are going to File and Save as a PSD. And we're good to go. We can load that straight into our classroom assignment under Juxtaposition. If you want to save it as a JPEG, you can. You just File, Export as JPEG, and then it'll ask you, don't worry if it's doing this, it'll fix that. I would always save it 100%. Why not? You can check the size here. So again, mine's 6:9. That's fine. Hit Save. And again, it's going to save that. And then you can put that into the class assignment right here under Juxtaposition.